Hello everybody, welcome back to the Untitled Tracks YouTube channel. You're joining me again on a little discussion. I'm heading down to work, so this is a perfect opportunity to have a little talk about something. Today's topic, let's talk about the frame rails on these vehicles. Once again, this is a 2016 Ram 1500 pickup truck, and this is what is called a 4th generation Ram. These started out as called the Dodge Ram, but FCA later on got rid of the Dodge prefix for the truck division. For example, this is no longer a Dodge Ram. In this year it was just called a Ram, even though it is made by the Chrysler Corporation, that is Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, FCA, or I believe now it is going to be called Stellantis, as it's once again changed a little bit of the management. I believe Peugeot is running the show now. Anyway, whatever it's called, this is the 4th generation Ram 1500 pickup truck, and this is going to be a discussion regarding strictly the half-ton trucks. The 3/4, 3500 trucks and above have a little bit of a different setup. If you get into those really heavy-duty versions regarding the Ram 4500s and 5500s, those are basically commercial trucks, and they have commercial frame width at the back. I believe it's around 34 inches because it's going to be accommodating different type of bodies, for example cube vans or tow trucks or ambulance bodies or anything like that. But for this pickup truck, this is basically the first version of the Ram trucks that have gone with a very, very stiff fully boxed frame rail front to back. It is a hydroformed design. That just means the construction of the frame rail is going to make it uniform in width. A lot of places where the manufacturers have to put in bends for whatever reasons to clear the body, to contour around suspension and powertrains and whatnot, they have to put curbs and bends up, left, right, wherever they need to, also to meet crash testing. So hydroforming is a process where they can basically bend the frame however they want to without having to go to extra thick metal, which would make all kinds of different variables as far as crash testing, and it would be too heavy according to the specifications. So basically it is the thickness of the frame that is controlled by the hydroforming process. This truck, as I said, in the 4th generation Ram, the 1500s, it's where it's really picked up its strength for torsional rigidity and bending. Regarding the previous generations of Dodge Rams and just Ram pickup trucks, they were basically a more flexible design. Now, there's two schools of thought about this. There's nothing wrong with a frame that bends if it's engineered to do so. There are many discussions about this, and basically 18-wheelers such as Class 8 trucks have C-channel frames. Some of them are double-walled frames, but the way they are designed, because of the amount of load they carry, they are designed to flex. If you ever see an 18-wheeler take off and the engine is really giving it all and it's pulling a maximum load, that truck will flex significantly, but the frame rail is designed to flex. So in that application, if they went to a fully boxed frame with it, which was very, very stiff, eventually that would crack. It will crack along the welds, it will crack along the rivets, or anywhere they have a stress point. Now, these fully boxed frames, as in many modern vehicles, I believe in this year 2016, if you look at the other major manufacturers from basically the North American market, Chevrolet, GMC and Ford F-150s, in the half-ton pickup trucks, you will notice that they are all gone with fully boxed frame rails. Some of those manufacturers took a little longer than others to catch up. Now, again, there's two schools of thought regarding this. One of the benefits of going to a fully boxed frame is going to be rigidity in the frame, regarding torsional stiffness especially, but also bending stiffness. It's going to be making the vehicle a lot stiffer. Basically, the backbone of the vehicle is going to be as stiff as the manufacturer can make it, and that will accomplish a lot of things. The steering, the suspension, all that underneath hardware is going to have a very strong, rigid backbone to be mounted to. So the manufacturers can really tune around with the sway bars, with the suspension travel, with the suspension stiffness, springs, shock absorbers, all that are going to be tuned in a way where it's going to be giving the most comfort for the driver. It will make the vehicle very quiet. It will make the ride very smooth because you're not getting that frame twisting, and the cab and the bed of the truck basically are going to move together instead of the truck twisting around like a wet noodle, if you can imagine that. If you ever notice vehicles in the older days, for example, my family had a while ago a 1996 GMC K2500 truck, which was an extended cab 8-foot box diesel truck, 4-wheel drive. That truck, if you get it articulating, for example, if you get one wheel in the air, you try to drive up on a ramp on one corner of the vehicle, or you get into off-road situations where you're articulating the suspension, you will notice that the bed of the truck and the cab will have huge angle changes as far as alignment gaps. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because in those generations, those trucks were engineered for a specific task, and they still met the numbers. It's just the C-channel frame is designed to flex because of the loads that they carried and the spring rates and the thickness of the metal and basically all the hardware the manufacturer puts into the design. It is just that they want that vehicle to flex to prevent anything from breaking. It takes a little bit more effort, engineering, and also metal to put into the frame to build a fully boxed frame that is going to be reliable. Now, you can box a frame, even aftermarket. You have plates that you can weld on to box them, but it will not necessarily provide the same outcome. It might develop cracks in the future because you're putting that frame onto different stresses. So from the manufacturers, when these major manufacturers actually put their heads together and design a fully boxed frame, it is basically a build for the life of the vehicle. It will meet pretty much all conditions. 20 years down the road, it will still carry the sticker weight, which is on the door jamb, and that's basically what you want. Reliability and not having to deal with any frame problems, because those are major issues. If you ever get into a vehicle with a broken frame, is basically a total write-off. And one of the major downsides to going with a box frame, for example, I live in Canada, and in this part of the city they do tend to heavily salt and chemical spray the roads. When it's winter time, the roads can become really nasty, and they do tend to put a lot of chemicals onto the road. So one thing you want to do is, at least once a winter, in my opinion, wash the truck from top to bottom, even get it up on an angle. When the weather thaws a little bit, it's not a bad idea to rinse those frame rails out, even though they are coated properly. And nowadays these frames are e-coated, I believe, from the factory, from Ram especially. It's just a process to protect the frame from rust. It is a very good, durable finish on it. However, the inside of the frame, where it is not really visible from the outside, it is always a good idea to either coat it with an undercoating, such as oil or anything like that that will penetrate the metal. Now, one place I've noticed that these frame rusts, which basically you cannot avoid if you're driving it on the road with these kind of conditions, is not the e-coating part on the major surfaces, but where the spot welds and the seam welds are put together. This frame, like many of the major manufacturers, is not riveted anymore. In the older days, when you had trucks with partially box frames and partially C-channel frames, a lot of those manufacturers gone with rivets to attach the frames together for many different reasons. I believe some of those metals, they were not really ideal for welding. You would cause weak spots in those metals. It's just the metallurgy and the type of metals that they have gone with. It is not the best idea to weld them together. Now, you can do it, but once again, they have to meet strict standards as far as warranty purposes and safety, reliability, and liability reasons down the road to make sure the vehicles don't break in half. Also, from the assembly line point of view, for example, in the old trucks, older designs, 10, 20, 30 years ago, pickup trucks, when they had these trucks made on the assembly line, they were a lot more simplified, where, let's say, you're comparing one truck with a regular cab to an extended cab to a true cab, also different box lengths. Basically, the front half of the vehicle was a fully boxed design, and underneath the cab somewhere, it is where they have gone to attach the rest of the frame, whether it's made from 2 pieces or 3 pieces or however pieces they were made of. That's where they riveted them together for ease of assembly and cost cutting. Basically, it is cheaper to put rivets into the frames than to weld them. Now this Ram 1500 truck, much like many similar trucks in this era, have gone with a hydrofoam frame rail that is fully welded front to back. So it is made of a lot of high strength steel pieces, but also the front end of the vehicle is designed to crush. Even though it's a box frame, it is designed to absorb the impact, which have a lot of technology built into it, because you want to meet current crash testing ratings, and it is a little bit tricky with something that's non-compressible, such as a solid box frame rail. So in parts of the metal, it is made of mild steel. The front frame horns are made of extremely high-strength steel to make sure the bumper and the front crush structure doesn't basically rip off in an accident. However, the rest of it underneath is very thick. It is at least 1/8 of an inch thick, fully boxed everywhere, including the cross members. This truck is, I believe it's around 140-inch wheelbase, and it does have quite a few cross members, so the frame is quite stiff, quite durable as far as noticing this everyday driving. What you're hearing in the background, if this camera is picking up any kind of a noise, it is nothing more than just cargo in the cab moving around. This truck rides very smoothly. Even if you drop in a wheel into a pothole at full speed, you don't really feel it. There's no shimmy in the frame, there's no vibration, there's no funny reactions going on. As I said in the past, I have gone with many different vehicles from the major manufacturers, all kinds of trucks. I have no brand loyalty to any of them, and I've noticed that when you have C-channel frames, they do tend to shimmy on the roads, especially when you're driving over uneven surfaces. That kind of a vibration can be induced in the chassis, and it's going to basically rock the vehicle back and forth violently in speed bumps and stuff like that if you're going really, really quickly. These kind of vehicles, doesn't matter who manufactures them, with fully boxed frames in this generation, they're all very stiff, they are all very durable, and they are all meant to compete with each other. So one good thing about the competition, when you have competition from different manufacturers, everybody has to step up their game. For example, if one manufacturer comes out with a specific engine that can meet a specific power output, the other manufacturers have to jump on board not to fall behind. So then the third manufacturer comes, and so on and so forth. Same with the frames. Basically the backbone of the vehicle, that's also very important, because that's the foundation, that's what everything is riding on, that's what everything is attached to. The suspension, the brakes, the cab, the chassis, you name it, everything. The trailer hitch is going to be hooked up to that, so everything is going to be working together as a unit. Now, when one manufacturer comes up with something that's really, above the competition, sooner or later the other manufacturers have to catch up, or they're going to be falling behind. And that's the case of this 2016 Ram 1500. I'm not sure in this model year whether they led the competition, but whenever manufacturers come up with different designs, or a new Ford F-150, for example, or a new GMC Sierra, or a Ram 1500 pickup truck, they always take the other trucks as a benchmark and they try to beat them. For example, in off-road performance, they try to outgun the others with a little bit more departure angles, approach angles, breakover angles. In towing capacities, they try to outdo each other with a little bit more payload or a little bit higher towing numbers. Also, the same applies to the frames, because those are basically the foundation of any vehicle. And once you get a really good, really strong frame going on, everything attached to that will be able to handle everything and make sure the ride is comfortable, it's smooth, it'll handle day-to-day chores. The smallest thing about dropping a wheel into a pothole, you won't notice it as much. As far as hooking up a trailer hitch, it's not going to move the vehicle around as much, because the whole frame is going to be a lot stiffer. Even going off-road and doing a little bit of rough stuff with it, the vehicle is going to be more planted, more directionally stable, and it'll just give the nicer driving experience to the driver, which is basically what everybody wants. Trucks are trucks. They're meant to haul and push and pull, but there's no reason you cannot build them up to passenger vehicle comfort levels as far as the noise, vibration, harshness standards. This vehicle, one more thing I've noticed underneath, when I got underneath in the good weather, right now as you can see it's winter outside, and there's no way I can go underneath. It's around -10, -20, hovering around there day to day, so any of those outdoor activities have to come to a stop for now. But one thing I've noticed underneath, this truck has basically mass dampers, which are just chunks of metal that are harmonically tuned to the vibrations that this vehicle does give off. I've done some research into this, and they are for two purposes. One of them is because this Hemi V8, this has the 5.7 liter Hemi V8, and when it does go into 4-cylinder mode, it would definitely tend to give up some engine harmonics, because when you have a 90-degree V8 with a cross-plane crankshaft, just a regular V8 design, it runs very nicely and smoothly. It is pretty much naturally balanced, or as close as you can get with an internal combustion piston engine. However, when it does run into 4-cylinder mode, it does tend to give off some vibration. So those frame harmonic absorbers, they do actually tend to cancel some of that vibration out, but also some of the harshness that is basically a characteristic of a frame such as this, with this length and this harmonic that it would give off. Those dampers do vibrate a little bit on the same frequency, and they tend to cancel out those minuscule tiny vibrations, which also basically makes the ride smoother and less noticeable to the driver. If you were to remove those weights, you would definitely feel a little bit more harshness in the ride. So that's why those things are there. That all comes from engineering and making the design better and improving previous designs, and once again being able to better the competition. Now there's always room for improvement. Right now it's 2021 and the 5th generation RAM has already come out. I have no experience with that one, but as far as I know, as in always, when the truck manufacturer comes up with their newest generation, they always better the last generation in horsepower, in torque, in towing capacity, payload, also frame stiffness, you name it, all that stuff. So I'm sure that frame is stronger than this one, but as I mentioned, this was the very first generation of these Ram trucks that have jumped the previous generation as far as the frame strength and stiffness, and going with a very, very strong fully boxed design. So my experience with this truck, as I said, I've had different trucks from different manufacturers, from GMC, we had 2 GMCs actually, a Ford F-150 which had the Coyote engine. They were all great trucks, but I've noticed that this Ram rides the smoothest. It is also due to the coil spring suspension, front and rear. However, that spring design is also able to be put on this vehicle because of the frame design. If you have something that is a very sloppy frame, the suspension cannot do its job. It is going to twist around and cause all kinds of weird driving characteristics. So I'm really happy with this truck. As I said, it was almost a new purchase, and I would definitely purchase it again. I have no complaints about it. It's as smooth as any car. It can do all the truck stuff. It can pull basically, well, this truck 8,600 or so pounds. However, when you equip it with a 392 axle ratio, you're looking at around 10,000 pounds. And for a half-ton truck, that is plenty. Once again, for towing, if you're going to max out a truck, this truck is not the one to do it with. You always would like to increase your truck, have more truck than you require, just so you don't max out the capacity. It's never a good idea to put the maximum load on any vehicle. So again, if I had a trailer that weighed 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 pounds, I would definitely be looking into a 3/4 ton or higher truck. But for something that I have in mind, which is pulling a 5,000 or 6,000 pound trailer for camping, adventures, off-roading, this truck is definitely one of the right vehicles to do it. And especially going with off-road, which there's not a lot of information here in North America. However, in Australia, where overlanding and touring is a big thing over there, a lot of people are into that kind of stuff because the country is beautiful and there's a lot of tourist destinations and campsites and camp spots all over the place, inland in Australia, outland. Over there, basically they have a unwritten rule where the vehicle's towing capacity is going to be reduced by 50% when you're taking it off-road. So for example, if the vehicle would have a 10,000 pound towing capacity, when you are off highway, for example, taking it to the beach, taking it on really rough stuff, you would want to maximum tow 5,000 pounds. So once again, this truck, I'm looking to pull roughly a 5,000-6,000 pound trailer, which is pretty much going to be near the half mark just to be sure. You don't want to overload the vehicle off-road situations, especially because that puts a lot of strain on the vehicle, on the frame, on pretty much all the components. So if you have any questions regarding this truck or anything I can answer, let me know. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Once again, I'm just giving out information to the community for anyone who's interested in these trucks or overlanding or camping. I'm going to be putting a lot of content up very soon when the weather comes up. And if you like what you listen to, if you like what you see, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you like. That always helps. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you next time on the Yotso Tech Tracks YouTube channel. Ciao.